All right, you have quite a few different percent problems. Remember that you can either change them into equations and solve them like equations, or you can use that percent proportion. Remember our percent proportion, percents are always based out of 100, so your percent goes over 100. And then this is a fraction, and your total always goes on the bottom, which is usually indicated by the word of, and then is the part that they're talking about. I'm going to show you both of these on the first one. So if you set this up using the percent proportion, well, my percent, the magic number of percents is 100. I do know my percent, that always goes over 100, so that's 25. Then I look for the word of, and what number comes after that? Well, that means that's what I don't know, so I'm going to call that a variable. I'm going to call it n. And then what comes after is 456. So that, 416 goes on top. From here, you can simplify your 25 over 100 if you want to. On this one, it actually does make this problem easier because if you look at 1/4, and if you use mental math, you can do 416 divided by 4. That's 104. But, you don't have to do that way because you'll have a calculator. You can just use cross products, 416 times 100, and then divide that by 25, and you should end up with 1,064. And the other way that you can do that is if you change this into an equation. So if I change 25% to a decimal, because I can't multiply by percent, so 0.25 of what number? Remember that of means multiplying. So I'm multiplying it by something I don't know. So 25% of some number would be 0.25n. Is in math is an equal sign and 416. It's just a one-step equation. So you would divide both sides by 0.25, and you should end up with the exact same number. On this one, you and your family eat at La Mesa. The bill was $45.20. You're going to leave a 15% tip. What's the total cost? You can do this two ways. You can find 15% of your bill by multiplying 0.15, find what your tip is going to be, and then add that on. Or you know that you're going to pay a total of 115% of your bill. So that would be 45.2 times 1.15. And both of these should give you an answer of 51.98. 51.98. So again, remember on this one, this is finding your tip separately and then adding it to the initial $45.20. Actually, let me grab a calculator real quick and show you what that's going to be. So you would punch in 45.2 times 0.15, and the tip is going to be $6.78. So that's your tip. And then you have to take your $6.78 and add it to your $45.20. All right, next ones. All right, you will also be able to use your NISA reference card, but this isn't a bad formula to remember because, again, it is something that you will use throughout your life. Your interest you find by taking your principal times your rate times your time. So on number 60, Kim started with a savings account of $300. That's your principal. It's your starting amount. So she started with $300. And she is going to leave it in there for 3 years, and she's going to earn $10.80 of interest. So I know what my interest is going to be. That's $10.80. I know that she started with $300, and I know that she left it in there for 3 years. So what I'm missing, or what the question is, well, what interest rate did she earn? So that's my R. So all I'm going to do is set this up and solve this as an equation. I can simplify this to 10.8, 300 times 3 would be 900R. And then to find your rate, just isolate your variable and take both sides divided by 900. So 10.8 divided by 900, you get 0.012. And rates are always expressed as percents. Well, this is a decimal. Remember, to get from a decimal to a percent, you move it over 2 places. So my interest rate was 1.2%. And number 61, it says the population of Mathville, don't you all want to live there, went from 14,300 to 12,000. Well, this population of Mathville is decreasing, unfortunately. So to find percent of change, you take the amount of change and divide it by the original amount. So to find the amount of change, you subtract. So 14,300, it changed by 2,200, and you divide it by the original, which was 14,300. And you want that as a percent. So you can either divide that and get a decimal. If you divide it and get a decimal, you get 2,200 divided by 14,300. That gives you a decimal of 0.15386. And of course, you'll be able to round this because that's not even done. It keeps going on more than that. Or you can set it up as a percent, as a proportion. Either way, if you take this decimal and convert it to a percent, you get 15.38%, and you would do the same thing if you solved this as a proportion. Okay, last part of this review is solving inequalities, graphing them, and then writing them in interval notation. Okay, first of all, be mindful of what it starts with. Here you have an inequality that sits between a less than and a less than and equal to. So it does work because you have a variable that's greater than one number and less than the other. So then you should be able to start thinking, is this an and or an or? But we'll see that when we graph. So on this one, just go through and solve it. You can do all three parts at one time if you want to. That does not bother me. So you get 6 is less than 2p is less than or equal to 15. Then the last part that you need to do on both sides, or I should say on all three parts, would be divide by 2. So you get 3 is less than p is less than or equal to 7 1/2. You should go ahead and graph that. So if this is 2, 5, 7, 9, I have an open circle on the 3 because it's greater than 3, and then it's less than or equal to 7.5, so I have a closed circle. So again, it's greater than 3, so it's going to the right, but less than or equal to, so it's everything in between here. I should grab a different color and do that. This was a closed circle, this was an open circle. My interval notation, it does not include 3, so that's a parentheses. And then it goes all the way to 7.5, and it does include that, so that should be a bracket. Then on absolute value inequalities, remember that whatever is inside can be positive or negative because the absolute value of a negative number is just that positive version. So the absolute value of -7 is 7. So what's on the inside can be negative, but you can't have absolute value that is a negative because absolute value is never negative. So what you need to do is set these up both to the positive number and to the negative, but when it's a negative, I'm going to run out of room, has to be, you have to flip that sign. Let me rewrite that one. Okay. All right, so 3y minus 4, flip the sign, greater than or equal to -8. Then just go through and solve both of them. So add 4 on both sides. 3y is less than or equal to 12. You're dividing by a positive 3. No need to flip that sign. So y is less than or equal to 4. And then on this one, remember that's a -8, even though you can barely see that. So 3y is greater than or equal to -4. Divide by 3. So you get y is greater than or equal to -1 1/3. Graph that. So it looks like you have a number less than 4, greater than -1 1/3. And remember, I told you, if you have absolute value that's less than a number, your distance stays within a certain amount. So that graph should stay within 0 instead of getting really really big. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if this is 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, this is -1. So I've got a closed circle on my 4, and it's less than, so that's going to be shaded to my left. And then I have y is greater than or equal to -1 1/3, which would be about here, and that's greater than, and I should know that I do it right. My interval notation then, it's included in both, so it's going to be brackets or braces for both of them. So it should go from -4/3 or -1 1/3, however you want to write it, to 4. All right, good luck tomorrow.
Luck on your test.